All right, today we're going to tackle one of the most overused phrases in coffee, specialty. Like, is it real? Or is it just a fancy word you slap on a bag so people feel better about spending 20 bucks?
Yeah, and it's extra confusing because specialty can mean a vibe, a price point, a flavor experience, or a straight-up technical grade, depending on who's saying it.
Exactly. So today we're going to pin it down in plain English, what the Specialty Coffee Association is, what they actually do, and what specialty grade coffee means when it's used correctly.
And we'll also talk about the newer shift happening right now, because the old 80 points and you're in rule is getting updated into something a little more modern.
Right. And if you're listening as a normal human who just wants good coffee, don't worry. We'll keep this useful. No gatekeeping, no coffee snob passwords.
And if you're listening as someone who runs a cafe, roasts coffee, or just likes nerdy details, yeah, we'll hit those too.
Okay, so first, the SCA. That stands for Specialty Coffee Association.
Big global trade group, non-profit, membership-based. They're basically one of the main organizers of specialty coffee as an industry. Education, standards, events, research, all that.
And the SCA, as we know it today, was formed in 2017 when the Specialty Coffee Association of America and the Specialty Coffee Association of Europe unified into one organization.
Which is helpful because before that you had two big hubs, one on each side of the Atlantic, doing similar things, sometimes in parallel.
And the older American organization goes back to the early 80s. So this isn't some brand new internet thing. It's decades of coffee professionals trying to build shared rules and language.
Now, what's the point of that? Because someone might be like, why does coffee need an association?
It's because coffee is chaos. It's grown in one country, processed in another way, shipped across the planet, roasted somewhere else, brewed by someone else, and then judged by the person drinking it, who might also be eating a breakfast taco.
So if you want quality to mean anything beyond marketing, you need shared standards and shared vocabulary. Otherwise, great coffee just means I like it.
Which is fair, by the way. But the industry still needs a way to talk about quality in a consistent way, especially when money is on the line in the supply chain.
So the SCA does a few big things. First, they publish standards. When people hear standards, they think it means laws. It's not that. It's more like agreed upon guidelines and documents the industry can use.
Right. Like when you want to define how to evaluate coffee, how to brew coffee for testing, how to talk about defects, how to measure strength, how to teach baristas. Standards give everyone a common playbook.
Second, they do education. Their coffee skills program is basically a modular set of courses. Barista skills, brewing, sensory, green coffee, roasting.
And then the big credential people talk about is the Q Grader license. More on that in a minute. Third, they do events. And not just trade show with booths. They're connected to World of Coffee trade shows, and they produce the World Coffee Championships.
Which is where you get the barista competitions, brewer's cup, latte art, all that stuff where someone makes a drink in front of judges and somehow makes espresso look like the Olympics.
And honestly, love it or hate it, those events push innovation and set trends, sometimes good trends, sometimes weird ones.
Okay, now we should talk about something that matters to normal buyers. If you see SCA mentioned on a coffee website or bag, what are they implying?
Usually one of a few things they're implying we're in the specialty coffee world. Maybe they follow SCA style evaluation. Maybe the coffee was scored using that system. Maybe they use SCA training. And this is where it gets messy because for a long time specialty coffee got treated like a simple cutoff, 80 points or above on a 100-point scale, and it's specialty. That 80-plus idea became the shorthand. People built entire buying and selling systems around it, and the phrase specialty grade often refers to more than just flavor score. It also refers to green coffee quality, defects, sorting, moisture, and whether the beans are physically clean and consistent.
So you've got two tracks, sensory evaluation and physical grading. Let's do sensory first, because that's the one people hear about.
Classic cupping is basically standardized tasting. You roast a small sample, grind it, brew it in a cupping bowl with a specific ratio, break the crust, smell it, slurp it, and score it. And the classic SCA cupping form, this is the older system a lot of people still think of. Scores categories like fragrance/aroma, flavor, aftertaste, acidity, body, balance, and then cleanliness and sweetness factors. And yes, it rolls up into a number. That number became currency.
If you're buying green coffee, an 84 might be considered very good, an 86 might be a step up, and a 90 plus is rare, expensive, and usually tied to a particular farm, variety, processing method, or competition lot.
But here's the catch. That score is not a guarantee that you personally will like the coffee.
Because you might hate bright, acidic coffees, or you might hate funky fermented naturals, or you might just be brewing with boiling water and a blade grinder and your coffee maker from 2003.
So specialty score is more like, this coffee has distinctive attributes, and it was evaluated under controlled conditions by trained tasters.
Now let's hit physical grading, because specialty grade also gets used in that context.
Green coffee can have defects. Some are obvious. Black beans, sour beans, insect damage, moldy beans, broken beans, Quakers, stuff like that.
And the defect rules matter, because defects can bring unpleasant flavors, like baggy, musty, rubbery, fermenty, phenolic, the kind of stuff people think is just coffee because they've been drinking defects and dark roast forever.
In the SCA-style green grading system that's been widely referenced for years, specialty-grade green coffee is supposed to have 0 primary defects and only a small allowance of secondary defects in a sample size. Plus, it needs to be free of serious taints and meet moisture guidelines.
So, specialty grade is partly, this coffee is physically clean enough to even deserve a fair tasting.
Because if your green coffee is full of defects, your cup score is basically fighting uphill with ankle weights.
Okay, so now we've got the classic picture. Specialty coffee equals clean green coffee, plus a cup score above a certain threshold.
But the SCA has been shifting away from the idea that specialty equals one number.
This is where the Coffee Value Assessment, CVA, comes in.
The basic idea is coffee's value can't always be captured by one score. Because different markets value different things, and coffee quality isn't just the absence of defects or the presence of fruity notes.
So CVA is designed to give a more complete assessment across multiple angles, descriptive and effective, and even extrinsic information, so you get a higher resolution picture of the coffee.
And in late 2024, the SCA adopted parts of CVA as official cupping standards and said it supersedes the older 2004 protocol and form. So we're watching the industry move from specialty equals 80 plus toward specialty equals distinctive attributes plus context plus consistency plus value across the chain.
Which sounds like a fancy way of saying, stop pretending one number can explain everything.
Exactly. And if you're a consumer, the practical takeaway is don't get hypnotized by a score alone. Scores can be helpful, but the real wins come from transparency and competence, where the coffee came from, how it was processed, when it was roasted, and whether the roaster knows what they're doing.
Now let's talk about what the SCA does that affects your cup, even if you never think about them.
One is shared language. If you've ever seen the coffee taster's flavor wheel, like the big colorful wheel with fruity, floral, nutty spices, that's an SCA thing, updated with World Coffee Research in 2016.
It gives people a common vocabulary, so berry means roughly the same thing in Nashville as it does in Copenhagen.
It's not perfect, but it's better than tastes like coffee.
Another is brewing standards. You've probably heard people say something like, ideal extraction is 18 to 22%.
That idea comes from the brewing control chart tradition that specialty coffee teaches. Strength and extraction as measurable things, not vibes.
And the SCA publishes standards like the Gold Cup type standards for brewed coffee, target ranges for brew strength, and ratios for testing.
So if you've ever had a cafe drip coffee that tastes clean and balanced and you're like, wait, drip can do this? That's partly because the specialty world standardized how to brew well.
Water is another one. Water is the invisible ingredient that can ruin everything.
SCA-related standards and guidance exist around water chemistry, hardness, alkalinity, total dissolved solids, because water can make coffee taste flat, harsh, or chalky if it's off.
And if that sounds too nerdy, here's the simple version. If your water tastes bad, your coffee will taste bad. And if your water is super hard, it can dull acidity and make coffee taste bitter and lifeless.
Now, education. The SCA Coffee Skills program is basically their structured learning ladder.
If you're a barista, you can take barista skills. If you're into brewing, there's brewing. If you want to learn tasting, sensory skills. If you buy coffee, green coffee. If you roast, roasting.
And then there's the Q Grader program, which has been a huge deal in specialty coffee for years.
Traditionally, Q Grader meant a person trained and tested to evaluate coffee consistently using standardized protocols.
And recently, the Q program has transitioned under the SCA, and the SCA's version ties it to the CVA approach.
So, a Q Grader is basically someone the industry trusts to evaluate coffees with precision and repeatability.
Now, that doesn't mean every coffee that says Q graded is magically better than everything else.
But it does mean there's a serious framework behind the claim, when it's used honestly.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second and do a reality check. Why should anyone care?
Because words matter when you're paying money. Gourmet has no legal meaning in coffee. Premium is often just vibes. Specialty, at least, has a real history of standards behind it.
And that history includes people who basically helped build the concept. Like Erna Knutsen, she coined the phrase specialty coffee in 1974 in Tea and Coffee Trade Journal, and the specialty world basically grew up from that seed.
So you've got this long arc. A term gets coined, a niche forms, organizations form, standards get published, training develops, and now you've got specialty coffee as a global industry.
Now, I want to hit the part that matters if you're buying coffee online. If you want specialty grade to mean something, look for a few signals. 1. Do they tell you origin details beyond South America blend? Farm, region, processing method, variety, any of that? 2. Do they give roast date, not best by 3 months from now? 3. Do they talk about how they evaluate coffee? Do they cup? Do they mention scoring? Even if they don't give a number, do they talk about tasting and selection like it's a real process? 4. Do they sound like they actually like coffee, or like they're copying marketing from 10 other brands?
And I'll add a 5th. Do they tell you how to make it taste good? Because a real coffee company wants you to win at home, not struggle and blame yourself.
Now, speaking from the roaster side, this is where it gets personal. When I'm sourcing coffee for Bilge Brew, I'm not sitting there worshiping a number. I'm tasting samples, checking consistency, looking at how the coffee behaves when roasted, and asking, does this do its job for the person drinking it?
Because coffee isn't a museum piece. It's a daily tool for most people.
And that's a big reason specialty coffee can get weird. Sometimes it becomes about showing off instead of serving the drinker.
And I love a cool experimental coffee now and then, but I also respect a coffee that's dependable, brews clean, and doesn't demand a lab coat.
Which ties back to the SCA in a good way. At its best, the SCA pushes the whole industry toward competence.
Better evaluation, better shared language, better training, better brewing standards, better research.
At its worst, people use the buzzwords as a costume.
So here's the straight truth. Specialty grade is meaningful when it's tied to real evaluation and real quality control.
If someone is using it like glitter, ignore it. If someone can back it up with transparency and consistent results, now you're talking.
And the newer CVA shift is actually trying to reduce the obsession with a single score, which I think is healthy.
Because coffee quality is real, but coffee value is also contextual. A coffee can be amazing and still not fit what you want.
If you're a milk drink person, a super delicate floral washed Ethiopian might get lost. If you're an espresso person, a wild natural might be too unpredictable.
So specialty should help you choose, not confuse you.
Okay, quick side question. Do you think the average person can taste the difference between a 79 and an 82?
Most people? Probably not. Not consistently. And that's not an insult. It's just reality.
A trained cupper might detect subtle defects or structural differences. But for most folks, the bigger swing is freshness, grind, water, brew ratio.
So if you're listening and you're like, cool story, but my coffee tastes off, start with basics before you chase a score.
Fresh coffee, decent grinder, right ratio, water that doesn't taste like a swimming pool, and don't scorch it with boiling water if you're doing pour over.
And if you want to go further, that's where the SCA-ish approach can help. Change one variable at a time and actually learn what causes what.
Now, we should also talk about why specialty coffee matters beyond taste, because the SCA's current definition puts a lot of emphasis on the whole value chain.
Like sustainability, equity, the people who produce coffee, and whether the system is actually viable long-term.
Because coffee is under pressure as a crop. Climate issues, price volatility, labor realities. This isn't just my latte costs more now.
And specialty coffee, at its best, is supposed to pay for quality and reward good work through the chain.
That doesn't always happen perfectly, but the goal is quality and transparency create higher value, and that value can support producers better than commodity pricing alone.
So when you hear specialty coffee, you can think better tasting, yes, but also better structure, at least in theory, than anonymous commodity coffee.
All right, let's land the plane.
If you forget everything else, remember this. The SCA is one of the main groups building the rules and training for specialty coffee worldwide.
Specialty grade used to be heavily tied to an 80-plus scoring threshold and strict green coffee quality standards.
And now the SCA is updating that into a broader coffee value approach that looks beyond one number while still keeping rigor and shared language.
And for you, the drinker, the move is simple. Buy from people who show their work, origin transparency, roast dates, real tasting process, and who help you brew it well.
If you want more on how this plays out in real life, check out our Bilge Brew Show episodes on brewing methods and roasting. Because specialty isn't a label you buy, it's a process you can taste when the whole chain is doing the job.
And if you're the kind of person who loves a rabbit hole, the SCA has a ton of research and standards published. And it's actually interesting once you get past the acronyms.
Next time, we can hit something more hands-on, like how roasting choices can either highlight a coffee's strengths or bulldoze them.
And yes, we'll keep it practical. No incense. No chanting over the grinder.
Thank you, I appreciate that boundary.
All right, Bilge Brew Show, out.